Welcome to StoryUp. This is a long-form space for honest conversations about stories. The ones we live inside, the ones we carry for years, and the ones that continue shaping us even after they become books. I'm Dr. Marina Rivera, founder of Full Circle Press. I work closely with authors at many stages of their story's life, before a story is written, while it's being shaped, and after it's released into the world. StoryUp exists because I believe that stories don't begin or end with a book. They shape how we see ourselves, how we make meaning, and how we move through the world, often long before they're written and long after they're shared. Here, I reflect on what it means to steward stories with care, responsibility, faith, and discernment, sometimes on my own and sometimes in conversations with authors whose stories are already out in the world. If you're holding a story that matters or living with the one that's still unfolding, you're in the right place. All right, so this is take two. I recorded this whole video. Something went wrong with the recording, so we are back again. I do believe that this message matters, and so that's why I'm back to try it again. So I want to start with saying that I believe that most aspiring authors start with the wrong question, and without even realizing it, this question can quietly stall their entire book. Not because they're unqualified or not because they're lazy or not because they're not called, but because they're starting with method instead of mission. So let me explain. When most people finally decide to write their book, the very first question they ask is, how do I write this? So how do I outline this? How do I structure it? How do I publish it? How do I market it? And these are not bad questions. They're just not maybe the next right question that you should be asking, because when you start there, you are often accidentally creating overwhelm before you create clarity. Because how questions are going to be assuming that the assignment is already clear. But for most aspiring authors, it isn't. At least it isn't clear yet. So just to create a bridge, in scripture, we see, like throughout the Bible, we see that calling rarely starts with method. It most often starts with assignment. And so Moses didn't get a step-by-step leadership manual first. I'm sure he would have loved that, but he got a burning bush and a burden. Esther didn't get a palace strategy guide. Again, that might have been helpful, but she got a moment and she got a mandate. And so assignment comes before instruction oftentimes, and purpose comes before process. And I don't think books are any different. This is what I see all the time in author coaching. So all the time I see someone comes in and they say, I think I'm supposed to write a book, or I've had this idea for years, or God keeps bringing this back to me, or I just can't get started. And when I ask them, who is this book for? Oftentimes I get a long pause because they haven't been asked that question yet. They haven't asked themselves that question in a meaningful way. And then when I ask, what burden does this book carry? I often get another pause. And then when I ask, what is this meant to do? Like, what is this book meant to do in the life of the reader? This is usually when the emotion actually floods in, whether it's tears or just that knowing sigh, because now we're not talking about a book project anymore. We're talking about an assignment. And with that, I have found that clarity doesn't often start with structure. It starts with people, and it starts with purpose, and it starts with transformation. So if you start with, how do I write this? Your brain is automatically going to go to the mechanics of the thing. But when you start with questions like, who is this for? What problem is it meant to meet? What healing or clarity is it meant to carry? Instead of just engaging your mind, now you're engaging your heart. And when your heart engages, momentum is going to follow in a more aligned way. So I'm going to give you three, what I would consider better starting questions or better next right questions for aspiring authors. If you're writing, if you're thinking about writing, I do believe that these matter more right now than any outline template. So question one is, who specifically is this book for? So we're not going to say everyone. We're not going to say people like me or leaders or women or Christians. We're going to be more specific than that. But in this specificity, we're also not going to overthink it, and we're not going to spend, this doesn't have to take a lot of time. There used to be something very popular in the online entrepreneurial space where we would create what would be called ideal customer avatars, or ICAs. We would spend so much time, like pages and pages of notes about who our ideal customer was. I don't think it has to be that time intensive, but I do want you to picture one reader, and I want you to think about what season of life are they in? What are they struggling with? What are they praying about? Because if we can have clarity of reader, that creates clarity of voice. And then the second question I want you to ask yourself is, what burden does this book carry? So I believe that every book of the variety that changes lives is going to come from burden and not just some slick branding. I think it's going to come from a burden. What breaks your heart enough that you can't stay quiet about it? That's a burden. What truth do you feel responsible for stewarding? That's a burden. And that burden then can become your through line, which can impact outlining and everything else. Question 3, what transformation is this book meant to create? So I didn't ask you like what information does this book give, but what transformation is this book meant to create? After your reader reads it, what's different in their lives? What do they understand? What do they stop believing or maybe stop doing? What do they finally have language for? Because transformation is the destination, and then structure just becomes a vehicle by which we get to that destination. So when you answer these questions first, something shifts, because the writing is going to stop feeling like performance. It's going to stop feeling so mechanical, and it's going to start feeling like obedience because you've connected it to something that matters to you and matters to your heart. You're not trying to be impressive anymore. You're trying to be faithful. And faithful writing then becomes sustainable writing. And I have literally watched this happen again and again with authors. So I've seen authors who were stuck for years gain clarity in one session once they've named their assignment. And suddenly then an amazing thing happens. Then the outline appears, the chapter flow makes sense, the stories begin to line up, and the writing starts moving. And it's not because they've learned a new trick or a new hack, but it's because they found the target and they know what they're aiming for now. So if you're stuck right now, I challenge you not to ask, how do I write this book? I challenge you instead to ask, who is this for? What is it meant to carry? What is it meant to change? And sit with these questions, pray over these questions, journal these questions, bring these questions to a writing community if you have one. If you don't have a writing community, I encourage you to get one. Our small group coaching program here at Full Circle Press, the Author Circle, is the most beautiful, heart-centered community where we can bring questions like this to a group and get feedback and get reflection and get prayer around. And you might find that when you ask these different questions, the fog lifts faster than you expect. And if you're sitting here and you want help answering the right next questions for your book, like that's what we do also inside of my one-on-one author coaching. We don't just talk about writing, we clarify assignment and audience and message, and then we get to move. Because when these things are clear, books not only get finished, but they get finished in a way that is then going to have impact on the readers that they're meant to reach. And so if this stirred something in you, I'd love to hear it. You can comment below this video. I do come back, read all the comments. My team comes, reads all the comments. It motivates us to keep doing the work that we know we were called to do in a space that is the book writing and editing and publishing space continues to rapidly change. But what is not changing is what we know, like what I know that I know that I know that we were called to do. And so thank you for watching. Again, if you're interested in meeting with me, my team, you can find us. There should be a link in the YouTube description below to our website. You can also find us just over at fullcirclepress.org, and any of the book a call questions on the website go directly to our calendar. And I'd love to map this out with you. And if this isn't for you, and you maybe came across this video and you're not even writing a book, I hope that this does connect to something that you're doing in your life, something of purpose. I think it's transferable. And also, if you're not writing a book, I know you probably know somebody in your life who is or who aspires to. So please share this with them. And until next time, until we see you on the next StoryUp video, I pray that your life has meaning, that your life has peace, that your life has purpose, and that every single day you are growing into, that we're all just growing into the people that God intended us to be, that He intends us to be. So that is my hope and my prayer for you today, and have a beautiful day.